Hello. Thank you, Andy. So my name's Olivia Edwards. I'm a mindset coach, so slightly different. So what I do is I work with people to support them to develop a positive mindset and to utilize their own unique strengths to strive towards a happier, more successful life. And something I do alongside that I'm hugely, hugely passionate about is helping people to factor in me time, so to make time for themselves a priority, and to make sure that they're nourishing themselves to allow them to not only function, but also to flourish. So it's a huge privilege to be here today, sharing some ideas around self-care with you all. So what actually is self-care? It might be quite a new term to you. Lots of people think it's about extravagant holidays and spa breaks, maybe a bit of pampering and Prosecco evenings. As lovely as those things are, they're not always sustainable or manageable, and the after effects can be quite short-lived. So for me, self-care is a lot more about making sure you're meeting your basic needs, and also that you're really aware of your energy levels, whether that's your physical energy, mental energy, the energy of your soul and your spirit, and that you're finding time to really refresh those, refuel them, so that you can be the best version of yourself. And I know that's quite a recurrent theme that people have talked about today. I'd just like you to think about something for a moment. I'm sure most people here, if not all of you, will have a mobile phone or an iPad or some form of technology, and you'll all use those for different things, but we know that the more we use them, the more power they're going to use up, the more energy they require, and as a result, the more your battery is going to decrease. And we know just from using them that we prioritize charging them up. I know from personal use and talking to people that once their phone gets down to maybe 10, 20% battery, or you've had to put it on low power mode, you almost start to panic. You're rushing around, you're thinking, where's my charger? And you're anticipating recharging it already. So if we're putting this much emphasis and priority on our technology, then we really need to be doing the same for ourselves. And I think we are aware of self-care activities, and I'm going to cover some of those. You all have a little bookmark in your bags as well, which go over some top tips for self-care. But I think what's really stopping us is that maybe we feel we don't have enough time. So I'm going to look into that a little bit as well. So the sorts of self-care activities you can do that really are going to meet your basic needs, a lot of you will already be familiar with, but again, it's about finding that time to really prioritize it. So making sure you're staying hydrated, making sure you're eating nutritious foods. Getting enough sleep is another key thing. And I know we've heard from lots of people today who've spoken about exercise. So exercise obviously is going to make you physically feel better, but also mentally. It's going to help to improve your positive well-being, and that's a huge thing in terms of self-care, especially if you can do exercise outside. So there's a lot more research now around the benefits of actually spending time in nature, particularly open green spaces. There's actually GPs that are now prescribing that to patients as part of a trial because they're aware of the benefits. Also, building social connections. So we're very, very social beings. So if you can be communicating with people, preferably face-to-face, you're going to feel more of a sense of belonging, especially if it's in a really positive environment. You're going to help to lift each other up, and that in itself is going to lift your energy. So being aware of surrounding yourself with people and finding times for those interactions. And people have also touched on how that can be a real good support as well. And finally, I'm just going to touch on gratitude. So I don't know how many people are really aware of gratitude and what that is, but I would really strongly suggest practicing gratitude. It's about being aware and recognizing things that we're grateful for. So there is going to be good things in every situation. We might have to hunt really, really hard for the good times sometimes, but you will be able to find them. And if you can record it in some way, preferably write it down, just that process in itself is really, really powerful, not only for improving your mindset in that given moment, but then it gives you something to look back on. So if you're having a particularly challenging time, maybe just a bad day, it gives you something that you can then go back on and look over, and it's really going to improve your mind. So there's some things that I've talked about in terms of self-care activities, but unless you're really seeing self-care as something that's necessary for yourself, you're not going to be taking part in these things regularly. And for you to be able to see self-care as necessary, you need 3 things. So the first thing really is to change your mindset. So you really need to be approaching this from a belief of self-care is non-negotiable. It's a necessity, it's not a luxury. And it's something that you really need to do as an investment in yourself. Things that are going to help you to prioritise that are thinking about the way you talk to yourself. So I know that Mel was talking about the neuroplasticity of your brain and the fact that you have the power to rewire your brain, and you can do this through positive self-talk. So I'm sure many of you will have this little voice in your head, which can often be your biggest critic, that little inner critic inside you. What about instead if you made it your mission to have that voice as your biggest fan? So when you are prioritising time for your self-care and you're taking some time out, rather than then making yourself feel bad about that or beating yourself up, really, really be your own advocate for that. Praise yourself for taking that time out and really try and enjoy the moment. Because if you can start to shift your mindset, you are going to find that time for self-care and you will start to see the results. The second thing is learning that it's okay to say no, which can be really, really difficult, especially if you're the sort of person that really likes doing things for other people and that gives you a real sense of value. But sometimes our energy levels and our capacity just isn't enough to take on things for other people. And actually, in these times, saying yes to other people is saying no to yourself. And there have been lots of famous people who've talked about before you can truly give, you need to be full yourself. And if you're not engaging in self-care and you're not nourishing yourself and allowing yourself to be the best version of you, you're not going to be able to give the best of you to anyone else. And again, learning to say no and being okay with that will come with a change in mindset. And thirdly is also about practicing kindfulness. So I'm sure many of you are aware of the concept of mindfulness, all about being in the moment. And kindfulness brings in a sense of kindness and compassion to that. So again, it does link into your mindset and learning that it's okay to say no, but it's about when you're having a challenging time or a difficult day, really being kind and compassionate with yourself. So being that your biggest fan, your biggest support, asking for help and knowing that that isn't a weakness. Think about how you might be giving advice out to a friend and actually speaking to yourself in the same way. Because I know sometimes we give advice out to other people, but we're a lot more harsh on ourselves. So it's just having that kindness and compassionate nature towards ourselves. I also want to just share a quote with you. So one of the most important relationships you will ever have is a relationship you have with yourself. It's not selfish to look after your own needs and to engage in self-care. It truly is something that has to be non-negotiable because you can't pour from an empty vessel. You have to put yourself first. And I really believe that in order to combat, feelings of stress and things that might have a negative impact on our well-being, we need to be boosting our positive well-being as much as possible. And the best way to do this is through self-care. It's not always easy, but if you can start small and take small, manageable steps, eventually over time, those things will build up into a habit. And actually, research has shown that if you can try and do something consistently for 21 to 30 days, although that initial period will take a lot of effort, after that it becomes a lot more automatic. So it'll be a lot easier for you in the long run, and you will start to see the benefits. And if you can commit to doing those three things, changing your mindset, learning that it's okay to say no, and being really kind and compassionate with yourself, then you really are going to see self-care as a necessity and not as a luxury. And thank you all so much for listening. If anyone has any questions, you're more than welcome to come up to me during the break, unless you want me to answer them now. I don't know how we are on time. Break? Yeah, so I'll be around as a coffee break, I think, in about 15, 20 minutes. So come and find me then, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions.